Welcome. My name is Tracy Edwards, and I'll be today's moderator. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Cupertino-Sunnyvale. Today's forum will run about 90 minutes. Next slide. Thank you. Attendees will be in listen-only mode, and only the panelists will be on video. The forum is being recorded and will be available on lwvcs.org in the next few days. Before we get to the purpose of this forum, here's some background information about who the League is and about voting on March 5th. The League has fought since 1920 to improve U.S. systems of government and to impact public policies through education and advocacy. The League is strictly nonpartisan. It neither supports nor opposes candidates for office at any level of government. The League makes a difference because of the energy and passion of thousands of members around the country who work together to safeguard our democracy. Now, to say that the California ballot can be challenging is an understatement, but we have some good news, and that's Vote 411. Vote 411 is a one-stop shop for election-related information. Among the many things on Vote 411, you'll find ballot measure information and factual data on candidates in various federal, state, and local races. To find information specific to your ballot, just go to Vote 411 and click on Find What's on Your Ballot, and then enter your address. Everyone in California now receives their ballot by mail, but you have options on how to deliver your ballot. You may either deliver your ballot by mail, no postage is necessary, but your ballot must be postmarked on or before Election Day. You may place your ballot in a drop box, or you may deliver your ballot to a vote center. If you have any questions regarding your registration or any items shown on the slide, Santa Clara County residents should search rovservices.sccgov.org. Just a few more details on voting. First, if you need any of the services listed on the left side of this slide, they're available at a vote center. Second, we want to make sure that your votes are counted, so please pay attention to all of the items on the right side of the slide. In particular, sign and write your address on the return envelope. Your ballot will not be counted if there's no signature on the return envelope. And pay attention to how they list your name on the envelope. Is it first and last, or first, middle, and last? And sign your name in the same way it's shown on the envelope. For reference, here's a map of District 26. I'm just going to pause on this slide for a moment. Next slide, please. Okay, let's get started. There are 6 candidates for Assembly District 26. The top 2 vote getters will advance to the general election in November. Tonight, all of the candidates, except Ashish Garg, will participate. The candidates have agreed to the format and the ground rules for this forum. I will pose questions which were gathered in advance. Each question has a designated response time of 90 seconds, 60 seconds, or in some case, a requested response of a simple yes or no. A timer will give the candidates visual signals to help them pace their responses and to stop on time. We also ask the candidates and the public, if you choose to reference the recording of this forum or any of our forums, to do so only in its entirety. You may not just reference a portion of the forum. Each candidate has 2 30-second rebuttal opportunities that they may use to rebut the remarks of any other candidates. They may not use the rebuttal time to just add to their own comments or to go off topic. And last, in advance of the forum, the candidates were provided the first and last questions. And now I want to extend a very warm welcome to Patrick Ahrens, Omar Din, Bob Goodwyn, Sophie Song, and Tara Sreekrishnan. During the forum, and with the permission of each candidate, I will refer to them by their first names. The speaking order was randomly drawn, and the speaking order will shift with each question. The speaking order for the first question will be Patrick, then Bob, Sophie, Tara, and then Omar. So Patrick, why are you qualified to be our assembly person? You have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and to the league. It's good to be on this really important forum with you all. I am Patrick Ahrens. I'm the current district director for Assemblymember Evan Lowe. I'm already serving the community for the past 10 years in the legislature. I know this community. I was born and raised in this community. And additionally, I serve on the board of trustees for our community college. I'm ready to start on day one to tackle what is facing our most pressing issues here in California. I'm ready to take on these challenges. The first in my family to go to college. I got my slice of the American opportunity, that American dream, and I want to fight in Sacramento to make sure that we keep affordability and access to higher education, to combat our environmental degradation, to combat our educational inequities, and to support our healthcare disparities and fix our healthcare system. These are really challenging times right now. It is not getting better for everyday Californians. I'm ready to start on day one to fix that.
Thank you, Patrick. Bob? Bob, you're on mute.
I was doing great there. Okay, thank you, Tracy. I'm Bob Goodwyn, and I am most qualified to be your assembly member because I am willing to take the unpopular positions that address the root causes of the problems that we have in California. The main reason we have so much problem with homelessness, with drug abuse, etc., is economic. We have a system where government spending through taxation, but mostly through the huge invisible tax of government spending, steals from the poor and gives to the rich. This government spending degrades the buying power of the weakest among us. And the main thing we need to do to improve people's lives is to put a stop to that theft. If we protect everybody's right to property and commerce, no matter how little of it they have, then they can start working their own way up and start improving their own lives themselves. And in that way, we can have better, less poverty, less homelessness, and better mental health. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sophie?
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I was audit committee member of the city of Cupertino for 3 years. I am a CPA. I do tax returns for individuals and I help small business. I was shocked to learn the things that our government, our cities, our state agencies have transactions that were not reported to taxpayers, was not disclosed to us. So I'm running to let you know what's going on. And I'm running to be your friend in the state. There are 3 million people in my district. I talk to people, I meet everyone from homeless to the passengers on the Caltrain, who's people from afar to work in Silicon Valley. I'm here with you.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. My name's Tara Sreekrishnan, and my story starts here in Assembly District 26 as a daughter of immigrants. Immigrants make up 40% of our county's population, and that was my parents' story. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be a byproduct of the American dream. You know, my parents came to this district for a better life, for better opportunities, and they taught me the power of hard work and getting a good education. I am a lifelong learner myself. I'm proud to continue the legacy of my mother, who worked in public education, now as a trustee on the Santa Clara County Board of Education, where I work to improve the lives of our young people, to give them access to a good education from their very early years, to get them into good jobs, to give them a brighter future. And I've worked in the legislature, worked through both the Assembly and Senate to get bills signed into law, so I know what it takes to improve the lives of 40 million people in our state. I've done this work at the school level, at the city level, at the county level, at the state level, and doing the work in my nonprofit that I co-founded with 2 moms. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Omar?
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. My name is Omar Din, and I currently serve on the City Council of the City of Sunnyvale, and I believe I'm the best choice to be state assembly member due to my lived experience, my track record, and my vision for the district. My story starts with my parents, who also immigrated here from Pakistan in the 80s, and they did everything right. They really followed the American dream like they were told. My dad, is a small business owner with a private practice. My mom started a daycare in our home. And yet 40 years later, we can't even afford to buy a home here in our community. I think we're watching the American dream under threat, where the cost of living is going crazy, where there's more traffic on the roads, where our infrastructure is in disrepair. And so that's what's informed my work on council, building over 200 units of homeless shelters, getting new bus routes created for students, and pushing for economic development. And I'm running to improve the quality of life here in the South Bay, to push for housing affordability, to lower traffic, to support public safety, and to push for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. And Omar, you'll be our first person to respond to the next question, which concerns housing. Housing is a major problem in California, as we all know. Developers have fewer zoning constraints as legislation has shifted some control from the city to the state. Still, developers are not building because they say it's too difficult and time-consuming to secure the financing. With that in mind, what further actions, if any, should be taken to stimulate construction of affordable housing? And you have 60 seconds.
60 seconds, you said? Okay, perfect. Now, thank you for the question. Like I said, housing is one of the top issues in this area. I think there are a bunch of different things that can happen. First of all, when it comes to the funding, we need cities to be able to, and other agencies to be able to provide more notice of funding availabilities, or NOFAs. Those are triggered by pooling funds together. That's something that we've been able to do in the city of Sunnyvale under my watch. What we need is the state to be able to provide more funding for different opportunities for affordable housing producers to get even more funding down the line by having that seed grant. On top of that, the way that we zone our cities is so important. I think if we're only zoning one kind of housing and not other kinds of housing, then we're not going to get an economic market that allows for all types of housing. It's not just about building one sort of housing, it's about building housing across the spectrum of housing. That way we can alleviate the burdens on one part of the market and open up other parts of the market. And then when the market is running as it should, it becomes easier for developers to come in and produce. It becomes easier for people to buy those homes, and it takes the burden off of all of us.
Thank you. Patrick?
Thank you. Housing affordability is the number one question I get when I talk to people on the doors, when I'm meeting with constituents. We need to treat it like the crisis that it is. That means going parcel by parcel and working with our cities and our state on funding, on streamlining zoning rules, and looking at alternative places that we don't and historically have not looked at. I'm not waiting to get to the legislature to work on affordable housing. We've already done it at the Foothill De Anza Community College District, where we allocated $200 million for affordable workforce and student housing. Over half of our students are housing insecure or homeless, like I was as a student. And so we need to be looking towards our schools, our community colleges, and working with our cities. It can't just be the fight over local control. We've got to look at things differently. We have 116 community colleges in California. We have the opportunity to be an epicenter for housing growth.
Thank you. And we have lost the visual for one of our candidates. I'm just going to check. Bob, are you available? And I'm sorry to do this in front of everybody. David, maybe you could contact Bob and see if you can get him back online. So we're going to skip to Sophie, and we'll come back to Bob if he's back in time for this question.
I think housing is so important, and actually many employees who could not afford to live in the center of Silicon Valley moved outskirts. They moved to Tracy Mountain House. But look at the bad, terrible traffic. It is our infrastructure that keep people have to stay in the center of Silicon Valley. And we spend billions of dollars on our public transportation. That was for 50 years ago, that you just traveled from downtown of Sunnyvale to downtown Mountain View. So it's not acceptable. For the $1 billion we lost in the bureaucracy of the 27 agencies in the transportation, we need to have a solution to provide people solution. For example, if you are in Salinas, you come to work in Sunnyvale, it will take you hours. We have to solve this. Otherwise, limited number of houses cannot solve the problem for millions of people. We have to do the better transportation and also building houses. But the 200 is not enough for everyone.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, we need to look at the root of this issue. And here in Silicon Valley, we've added only one home for every 6 jobs in the last decade. We have over 180,000 folks living on the street in California. We have 160,000 affordable homes that are stuck in the pipeline. The developers can't access tax credit they need. We have a state tax credit system that's way oversubscribed. So we need to clear that up immediately. These homes can be built immediately. I've worked on housing legislation at the city, county, and now state level. I manage a legislative team. We're working on state-backed financing for affordable housing. So I know we have 44,000 parcels of excess land that HCD is working on for affordable housing that needs to be sped up. Excess properties just sitting there. I want to give a shout out to my colleagues that worked on getting the Alquist building released by the state of California to build housing for students. We created a division in HCD to look at underutilized sites. We need to build in a sustainable way to meet our climate goals as well.
Thank you. And this next question starts with you as well. There's one state ballot measure on the March ballot, that is Proposition 1, which asks the voters to authorize more than $6 billion in bonds to build mental health treatment facilities for those with mental health and substance use challenges and provides housing for some homeless. Do you support this measure? If yes, why? And if no, why not? You have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. I am a yes vote. This is a step in the right direction. We need to acknowledge the scope of this issue and make sure we're being more strategic about how we're laying the groundwork for lasting solutions. About 1 in 5 homeless individual reports a mental health or substance abuse issue. This is a vicious cycle. An individual dealing with mental health is 4 times more likely to end up in prison than in a state mental health care facility. Those with mental health are in a vicious cycle where they're more likely to become homeless, and those that are housed are often more likely to deal with serious mental illness. So this is a step in the right direction. You know, when I worked at the County Board of Supervisors, I was a chief of staff, and we worked on the 2020 Homelessness Action Plan, where we brought folks that were homeless to the table to ask them what they needed. And what we found is they needed the short-term transitional housing to get off the street and to give them access to permanent supportive housing where they had drug addiction services, mental health, job training, and that's what Prop 1 does. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Omar?
Yes, I think this is an easy one. I'm also a yes. I think Proposition 1 is so important, and I'm very glad to see that it's on the ballot and that we're moving in that direction. I agree entirely that it's not just about dealing with the symptoms of the issue. You need to get to the root cause. The root cause of homelessness goes in so many different directions, and it's not just housing. It's also mental health. It's also the services that we offer. Proposition 1 is a step in the right direction because we're getting to that root cause. Because what you need, and this is what I've seen in my time on council while I've worked on the issue of homelessness within Sunnyvale, is you need wraparound services. You can't just take people off the street. If they have mental health issues, if they have drug addiction, if they have other health issues, you need to treat that as well, because that increases their likelihood of ending up back on the street. When we're talking about homelessness, even if we took everybody that's there right now off the street, we'd end up with just the same number of people in 10 years if we're not getting at the root causes of it. And I think this is one way that we can do that.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yes, I'm a definite yes vote, and I'm actually actively campaigning along with my candidacy to get this thing passed. I think that poverty, mental illness, and our homeless population that is affected by these issues is it's a policy choice that we've not acted on in several decades, and we're finally getting to that point where we can make serious movement on it. But it's going to require more than just getting them in a home. We need to get out of our silos and not just play the blame game. I think voters are tired of seeing more bond issuances and more money be spent on the problems and not seeing improvement. We've got to get out of our silos. What can the community colleges do? What can the county do? What can the state do more of? So it's not just pointing fingers at why there's these issues in the first place. And so I'm a definite yes vote, and I'm going to be one of the first assembly members to be trying to access those funds for our region.
Thank you. And I'm going to explain to the audience that Bob had internet issues and had to, and got disconnected and has rejoined us. Bob, I'm going to repeat the question that everybody is responding to. You'll be responding next. There's one state ballot measure on the ballot in March, Proposition 1, which asks voters to authorize more than $6 billion in bonds to build mental health treatment facilities for those with mental health and substance use challenges and provides for housing for the homeless. Do you support this measure? If yes, why? If no, why not? You have 60 seconds.
No, I oppose that measure, and it's further economic damage that we cannot afford. We have people that are homeless and even mentally ill because they are in a situation where being willing to work is worth nothing, and that happens because the return on the effort is depleted by the government spending and the taxation. We need to return to a free market economy. And then people can get jobs, they can get their own places to live, and start moving themselves ahead. It is a great boost for behavior to be able to have that privilege. And furthermore, Prop 1 will establish a mental health bureaucracy that is going to take people's rights away and start violating people's rights and incarcerating people who are actually harmless. I am against it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sophie?
Before I answer, I want to tell you the story. I met a homeless on the Caltrain station, night rail station. His car was told his car is $1,500. He was told by police because he has no plate. It cost him $200 to transfer the title and $200 to do the smoke test. He did not have the money. The police towed his car, put him into jail. When he come out, the towing company, after a few days, towing company charged him $1,200. I went to the city of San Jose. I said, this is a homeless, but he's trying to work. He just needs money to get the car out. Can you give him $800 loan and I'll put $500 to get his car out? No. They said that if he need a house, we put him into a shelter. If he need food, we give him food, but no help. This guy is trying to work. This guy is a homeless that can work, but nobody help. But the city of San Jose paid $50 million to eBay as a kickback from our sales tax. Do you think we need more money to build some shelter nobody can use?
Thank you. Next question is simply a yes, no, and you need only raise your hand if your answer is yes. Do you support a woman's right to reproductive freedom? If yes, raise your hand. Thank you very much.
I want to say something.
So do you want to use one of your rebuttals?
Yes. I want to tell you, if my mom was too poor to give me birth, but her friend said, give birth to the baby, I will raise her. This support made my mom has confidence to give me birth. But my sister couldn't afford to have a baby when she tried to find a job. So she had made a terrible decision that she had an abortion. She was not criminalized, but later she gave birth to a healthy boy. What I'm trying to say is that women should have a choice, but the society should give women support so they can make informed decision.
Thank you very much. Sophie, the next question starts with you. It's for 60 seconds. And before I do it, I want to acknowledge the students of the Youth Public Policy Institute for their engagement and for providing this next question. Yes, applaud them, please. A great group, our future leaders. How do you plan to balance calls to protect the right to own a firearm with gun control laws to protect individuals?
So me to answer?
Yeah, it's your turn. Yes, and you have 60 seconds.
I took my son travel to overseas, and while we were there, my 6-year-old watched the terrible Texas shooting by the assaultive guns. He was scared. When he came back, he felt like he couldn't face the war. But this really break my heart to see so many people lost their life so young. This should not happen. But to protect the gun or to protect knife, I think we need to make a decision. And also to make a balance to protect the the constitutional right of gun ownership, but life is so important. We cannot ignore the loss of life, so many young people, but also we need to have a balance.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, one thing the state can do is invest in our firearm relinquishment officers. So I believe we only have 2 in the Bay Area, which is far too little. And this is a program to get guns off the streets for those folks that are identified for not having the capacity to have a gun. Whether they're pre-identified, it's enforcement of our red flag laws, or for instance, they're a felon. But we don't have enough of these officers. We need to increase the number of these officers from the DOJ throughout the Bay Area and statewide. I was able to be chief of staff at the County Board of Supervisors, and our office passed our safe storage ordinance. I want to bring this safe storage ordinance statewide to save youth, especially their lives, and to save people's lives. At the County Board of Education, we work with Moms Demand Action, San Jose, including my mom, who's a mom demanding action, to promote the Be Smart campaign, to promote education around safe storage. So that's one way that I'd start.
Thank you very much. Omar?
Thank you. And I think this is such an important issue. I think at the state level, we can definitely look into sensible reforms. And on top of that, being even creative in the approaches that we use. We look at sister agencies like here in the Bay Area that are looking at creative solutions like requiring insurance for gun owners, also putting more enforcement mechanisms and building up the apparatus that we have across the state and at the local level for enforcement of our laws. It's not just enough to pass the right law or to say the right things if you don't actually have teeth behind it, if you don't have a means to enforce these policies, whether that be through our local agencies, our local public safety departments, like the ones that I've been running here in Sunnyvale, or at the statewide level, creating new programs for ensuring safe gun ownership, for ensuring that we're following through on all of these things that we're setting at the state level.
Thank you very much. Patrick?
Well, we need to enforce our existing laws first and foremost. We need way more money being poured into firearm education and safety programs. And we need to act more courageously and boldly. While serving in the legislature with Assemblymember Lowe, he's got an F- rating from the NRA, and that is the F- that his parents are proud of. And I fully expect to also get an F- from the NRA, because to me, it's not just about how do we balance. It's not balanced right now. The NRA has a stronghold over our federal government, and we in California need to be showing leadership and courage into fighting for these policies so that more people, and especially in our education institutions, are not targets, and we can stop the killing of our innocent children and people in our community. That's only going to happen if we stand up to bullies, and that's what I'm going to do in the legislature.
Thank you. Bob?
Okay, get ready to hate me. I approach our epidemic of violence, gun and otherwise, by looking at the root cause. And in too many instances, I see our system of aggression and fraud that comes from government and from outside government as the root source of the evil. I see too often a person who has been wronged and left with nothing to lose who resorts to violence. And I say that, and I get accused of siding with the terrorists, siding with the shooters, which is not true. I get accused of being glad that a terrorist attack happened or a shooting happened. That's also not true. I'm the one who really wants to stop them. So first of all, gun control is not effective in addressing the root cause, but more importantly, gun control is one more wrong against a person who has harmed no one. It's one more violation against a person's rights. It's one more act of violence. Add to that red flag laws, which violate due process, and you're going completely in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, this next question starts with you. The Bay Area has 27 different transit agencies, and I may be undercounting. This has created many transit silos. What will you do, if anything, to increase ridership, reduce costs to taxpayers, and generally create a more efficient transit system? You have 60 seconds.
Well, the problem there is that these are government monopolies. And When the government takes a monopoly on a transit system which should be open to competition from both rail and jitneys and buses by private companies, and takes money by taxes away from the economy, those others are no longer able to compete. So what you have now is a collection of little monopolies. And there are some movements afoot to make it a one big monopoly. That would be even worse. But so what I would do to solve it, first of all, your ridership issue, that's the problem of having a system, whether the riders are there or not. A free market would look for the demand and then build the system. So I would, as much as possible, turn the transit systems over to the free market and allow competition between rail and roads, jitneys, and whatever else the capitalists can think of to improve the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sophie?
Yes. I think people travel from Salinas, Sacramento, all the way to come. Nobody care how they get here. Nobody care their traffic. I think all those officials in this those transportation agency should be approved by the people who work here to see if they are doing a job to take care of all these people on the road. Do they only care about downtown San Jose to downtown Sunnyvale or Mountain View? That's not acceptable. For the $8 billion we spend on VTA alone, we have empty buses, we have empty night rail. I went to the night rail and bus station. Nobody's riding it. Caltrain is another story. Caltrain, one train brought only 20 people at the peak time, while the next door building has 2,000 employees. They all come by car. It's not easy to get to the station. This we need to investigate.
Thank you very much. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, the pandemic created a lot of problems. You know, BART and Caltrain had full ridership until then. So we need, as state legislators, to work with our cities and transit agencies to run more service, which is the work I've been doing assigned to the budget process. We, in a large team, secured $11 billion for Bay Area transportation infrastructure, and we safeguarded that funding even during the deficit. And we allowed flexibilities for operators that were operating during the pandemic. If folks saw the newest cost projections for BART San Jose and the delayed start date of a decade and going twice over the projected costs, I support the mayor's effort, Mayor San Jose's effort for oversight, for an oversight committee to look at recommendations to how to reduce cost overruns. We need to meet our climate goals. I was proud to work behind the scenes to get the community on board and pass a first in the nation declaration, climate emergency declaration at VTA. We need to do that statewide too and support seamless Bay Area as well.
Thank you very much. Omar?
Could you repeat the question?
Happy to. The Bay Area has 27 different transit agencies. This has created many transit silos. What will you do, if anything, to increase ridership, reduce the cost to taxpayers, and generally create a more efficient transit system?
Thank you. And like I talked about in my introduction, traffic and transportation are some of the top issues facing our area. During the past year, while I've been a newly appointed member of the board of directors of the VTA, I've seen firsthand how our transit systems are operating and where it goes wrong. As we've already heard about, the ballooning costs and timeline projections of VTA are unacceptable. And it was an issue that I inherited that I've been fighting, and to me proves the need for greater transparency and accountability. And a lot of that has to come from the state level. I'm very excited to see what the audit that happens at VTA is going to produce, because that's how we inform the decisions we make. Like you said, there are so many different transit agencies across the Bay Area. We need them to be working together. It's unacceptable that you have a different fare for each one and you have to go to a different place just to get on it. We need them to seamlessly connect into each other. And that all happens at a higher level by bringing people together. And that's the kind of work I did while I was on the VTA board of directors, bringing together the city of Sunnyvale, the VTA, and our school district to create an entirely new bus route to get students from North Sunnyvale to school in the morning.
Thank you very much. Patrick?
Yeah, for me, it really just comes down to an accountability and governance issue. We need to be asking ourselves, why is there 27 transit agencies? And should there always be 27 transit agencies? That is the root of the problem right there, is if we continue to allow 27 transit agencies, then why are they? What requirement do they have to work together to help improve our transportation system? And the answer is that they all don't meet and confer and work on these seamless issues. It takes outside groups putting pressure on them. So there needs to be a hierarchy model. Yes, there needs to be accountability and oversight. But take a look at all of our tech companies spending millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on their own private bus fleets, own private transportations. No one's talking to them about trying to get them on board and bring them back. So as an assembly member, we need to harness the tech innovation of our district and be working more collaboratively on that. And lastly, I took the bus to the Taylor Swift concert, and it can work if we bring more economic opportunity. It was the best day in public transit history here in Santa Clara County.
This next one, Patrick, starts with you, and it's for 90 seconds. For each of the 4 cities you will represent, please identify one significant issue for each city and what you'll do to address that issue.
Oh, that's good. Cupertino is obviously what's on everyone's minds now is our sales tax issue. We need to fix our online sales tax issue with Cupertino and Apple, and the discrepancy with that our bureaucracy in our state have. I'm proud to be working with Assemblymember Lowe on passing legislation to fix that, to make sure that Cupertino gets their sales tax that they need and have historically gotten. It'll be a huge impact on the deficit. We need to also take a look at Santa Clara and what we can learn and help with them. The city of Santa Clara, where I was born and raised, has their own utility company, and their rates are 40% less than anywhere else's. There's a lot of legislation that I think we can use from there. Certainly, we have an extreme wealth in this district, but we have a lot of poverty and disparity in our income gap in our unincorporated areas in San Jose and in El Viso that have been historically left behind. So we need to put pressure on our state and cities to reinvest in those impoverished areas. And in Sunnyvale, where I live, is an amazing city. We have a lot of opportunities, but they're not historically getting their fair share of state funding, of transportation funding, of our regional healthcare funding. And so I want to be an assembly member to address those issues as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Bob?
Well, after I address the internet issues in Sunnyvale, here where I live, I have to say that overall Sunnyvale is doing pretty well. And so the focus is really, well, of course, I oppose the sales tax in Cupertino. The focus is really in our part of San Jose, and that's where the epicenter of most of the problems are. So I want to address the homelessness and crime that are happening there. And once again, homelessness is an economic issue. I want to stop the government spending, stop the taxation, remove the restrictions on economic activity that make people homeless. And once we can start solving that, we can start having less crime, drug addiction problems will reduce, mental health problems will reduce, and we can start moving toward a better society. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie?
Let's start from the city of Cupertino. I worked in the audit committee, so I think the issue I see is that there is no independent audit committee, and also the city council all these elected officials are not funded. Their work is not they do not have support. So then the city is heavily relying on one company. So the economy is at risk, in my opinion, because all the small business get killed by the high rent. So people cannot afford, and the richest city in the world cannot support a school. We have to close our school. That's terrible. I cannot believe this, because all the people cannot afford to move out, and the school we have to close for some developers. So I'm very surprised. So I think that's one issue. The rich, super rich, and the super low income family, we need to find a way to coexist and to better education for our kids. Sunnyvale, I like Sunnyvale because Sunnyvale, after my research of the the financial reporting and the sales tax issue, Sunnyvale do not have any revenue sharing deal with any corporation. I'm very proud of you and good job, Omar. So if you in the city council.
Thank you very much. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, starting with Cupertino, the new physical interaction rule and rules around sales tax could decimate this city to the tune of $60 million or more. When the city council member reached out, I was proud to be the first person to hold a meeting with CDTFA. You know, this was not in line with the legislature's intention with the Board of Equalization as well. So we need to continue these conversations, and our legislators need to be strong advocates with the governor's office as well. This is going to provide a lot of uncertainty and financial hardship for our city if we don't move back in a right direction. For Santa Clara, I would say supporting the renovated downtown, which is very exciting, although funding for the new downtown, it will be difficult. And as a state legislator, I'd want to support that effort as much as I can as well. For San Jose, I would say public safety is the major concern. You know, for vacancy rates at the city, I've seen as high as 500 in the city of San Jose for patrol cops. So I want to do whatever I can to fill those vacancies at the city level. You know, the governor released a strike team in Oakland to support augment police with highway patrol. And that's something that seems to have been working. And Sunnyvale, you know, after the closure of Sunnyvale High School, it's left that area historically underserved. I fought with parents to stop the closure of a middle and high school in North Sunnyvale. The students are traveling way too long. They need access to better education.
Thank you. Omar?
Thank you. I mean, just going through the list, starting with Sunnyvale, which I'm proud to have just finished my term as vice mayor of and sit on the city council. I think it's equalizing the amount of resources across the city. Sunnyvale's a beautiful city, but North Sunnyvale, which I represent, doesn't have the same level of infrastructure or resources as the rest of the city. I think bringing that up to speed is paramount. When we go next door to Santa Clara, I think helping with their housing market is just as important. And obviously all of these issues go for all of the cities, but Santa Clara has a great amount of development, it has jobs coming in, but that jobs to housing ratio definitely needs to be supported, and ensuring that housing prices can be worked on regionally. And when you move over to San Jose, especially West San Jose, which is in the district, one thing I'm seeing there is the manner in which development is happening and ensuring that local voices are part of it. I look at things like the conversations happening around the Costco development and West San Jose as a key example of where we need to have policies that allow for local voices to have a part of that process, but that we're still moving forward with our development goals. And finally, in Cupertino, I think that issue around the way that the state is recouping its taxes now is decimating Cupertino's budget. I think the process in which that has happened has jeopardized the entire city's finances and has left the residents worse off. And I don't think that's the manner in which our government should be interacting with its local agencies. And I know during my time on city council, I've seen that firsthand. And so finding solutions to that is something that's so important.
Thank you. And Omar, this first question starts with you, and it's for 60 seconds. Your district includes areas which have been identified as at risk due to sea level rise. What is your plan to deal with sea level rise and its impact on the communities you'll serve?
Yeah, I mean, sea level rise and by extension, climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our generation. During my time on council, I helped spearhead the Moffett Park specific plan. Moffett Park is that part of Sunnyvale that borders the bay itself. And that was one thing that I made sure was a part of it, which is how do we mitigate for sea level rise? The solutions we found there is to look at new technologies and to be at the forefront of that process, to make sure that we have policies in place so that technologies that we can't even predict yet that might appear 10 years from now have avenues to be incorporated in so that we can quickly implement them and explore them and figure out how we can use them. Other things that we've looked at is actually using some natural solutions like the types of plants and vegetation that are there. Some of them actually do a really good job of sucking up water. And so if we're able to incorporate that, we can deal with some of that impact of sea level rise. And then the third one is by working with our private partners, working with our developers, and working with all of the people that live in that area, because we all have a vested interest in mitigating for these impacts. So ensuring that they're there, that they're a part of our conversations around it is how we ensure that the best solutions come out of it. And that's what I did during my time on council, and what I hope to do in my time in the legislature.
Terrific. Thank you. Patrick?
Thank you for this question. You know, Parts of El Viso is actually below the sea level, and again, it's a portion of San Jose that has historically been not given the appropriate amount of funding that they deserve. And regarding our sea level rise, we need to be working with our partners. The state needs to be taking a look at that levy out there. We need to be working with our federal partners and Congressman Ro Khanna's office to allocate more funding with the Army Corps of Engineers and the state and our local municipalities. Looking at the storms that we've had recently, we need to address that. And the state needs to step in. We used to build major infrastructure projects in this state. It brought people back to work. It created our strong middle class. And I think it's only a matter of time before those levees break out there in El Viso, and we've got to do something about it. And so I'm looking forward to presenting legislation to address that more specifically.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, climates are going to change. It's what they do. And I'm all for protecting the environment, but I view control of CO2 as a lowest priority. I do not see the science adequate in proving that man-made CO2 is causing climate change. Now, as for sea level rise, people who buy property near the ocean know that the seas are going to rise. And I feel for them, but they should understand the risk they're taking, and we should not make their problem a statewide problem. So that having an insurance policy provided by the state, as some people want to do with regard to people who live in high fire dangers or high landslide dangers or high flood dangers, it should not be that way. The insurance should be private so that a market decision can be made and a risk decision can be made by people who want to stay near the shore. And from there, they have our best wishes, but it is their own decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sophie?
I'm not an expert on this topic, but I'm going to learn. But I think people living there, I feel for them. And I think I'm going to visit people along the seashore and see what their opinion and what they think states should do. But overall, if I'm get elected, I'm not going to have laws rule over people's life. I'm going to have more rules to regulate our cities, governments, and state agencies. I think our government need to be watch out. So I'm not going to put laws over business or individuals' life. I'm going to learn this topic, but yeah.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, I am proud to be running in this race as a climate champion. I've earned the sole endorsement of the Sierra Club and other environmental organizations, and I think this starts with climate change. We are under immediate threat for sea level rise. We have about 30,000 vulnerable residents at risk of flooding. We have housing units that are at risk of flooding. I'm supportive of efforts going around at BCDC around sea level rise and working with communities. We need a statewide agenda around climate mitigation and adaptation. We need to scale up our coastal resiliency efforts, and it needs to be an aligned strategy that's collaborating with local agencies and districts as well. In California, we've shown the nation what's possible in terms of combating climate change. And so I'm very supportive of those efforts and want to continue the work I've been doing around environmental ed, water conservation and new buildings, building electrification, and switching to renewable energy and ending our reliance on fossil fuels.
Thank you. Tara, this next question starts with you, and we're going to stick with climate change. California has a goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2045. What is the one big idea you have for accelerating the goal for becoming carbon neutral? And please be very specific.
It would be to support community choice energy statewide. I've been supportive of Silicon Valley Clean Energy, an alternative to PG&E that puts power back into the hands of consumers. I served on their Citizens Advisory Board. So we have community choice energy across the state, but not all across the state. And we've shown how it can be cost effective. We can earn money, actually. We can put money back into pockets of consumers. And we can move to renewable energy very quickly, and we can have a strong grid along with it. So that would be my bold policy idea. At the county office, we're actually supporting pre-apprenticeship programs. So we need to make sure our workforce is skilled in making sure they can have green careers in these growing industries. So I'd want to combat the issue at that level as well.
Thank you very much. Omar?
I think it really comes down to supporting our electric infrastructure. That's one of the key things that we can do. During my time as vice mayor, when I led the Moffett Park specific plan and created or redeveloped our Moffett Park area, one thing I ensured was a part of that was the creation of an entirely innovative ecological district where we actually had a separate energy grid that we were creating to benefit the residents along with the commercial and retail and business groups that were coming in there. And that was through partnerships with them. As we look to lowering our carbon footprint, we're going to be moving over to electric vehicles, but we need the infrastructure in place to support those electric vehicles. And so we need new charging stations, we need new electric vehicle infrastructure, and all of that has to happen for us to be ready to do all of those other things that we want to do.
Thank you. Patrick?
Well, for me, it's really an infrastructure and a workforce issue. Even if we had all of the money to give to all of our cities to go reach every single one of their state goals and city goals, we wouldn't have a workforce to keep up with that demand. So if we, like I had mentioned earlier, we need to be reinvesting in our workforce issues so that we can actually get the people and the boots on the ground that is needed to enter into this new green economy. We're not nearly there yet. The community colleges have historically played such a central role in equipping and training and working with our apprenticeship programs. We can be double or triple the size of our educational institutions when it comes to working with the trades programs to get us started. You know, I passed legislation at Foothill De Anza to make us the first community college in the state of California to go fully electric and fully decarbonized by 2035. We're not going to be able to get there unless we have the workforce that is required. And so we need more leadership from the state on both of those issues.
Thank you very much. Bob?
As one of the many Californians who was not consulted before that goal was set, I'm going to do my best to disregard it and put it aside. Now, I'm going to make all of you very tired of hearing about me talk about the economy. But really, that is the main issue we have in this state. As long as you have people that are poor and homeless and robbed of opportunity, nothing else is going to matter. And this climate goal is going to be a huge part of that. When you start taking away the more efficient fuels and mandating inefficient fuels, mandating misguided environmental regulations, and while people are homeless and mentally ill, your priorities are wrong. And I will be the bad guy on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sophie?
I want to make sure all these new laws will not add to the cost of those low-income families. The homeless I met, his trouble was because of the smoke test. In order for people to get green, there are more and more requirements by the law, and then poor people cannot afford it. So that's one thing. And new technology developed by startups. I worked in company that produce new materials that will use very little electricity to power the heating. I'm not even using heater because I have the new materials that cost very little electricity. Why not we promote all this for individuals, but instead private sector covered all this? I don't think we need new law for the green. I worked in startup that have company invested. They are doing the energy saving, the green. Why we need new law to make people's life, especially low income people's life, more difficult? They cannot afford it.
Thank you, Sophie. Sophie, this next question starts with you. There has been an increase in hate crimes. What can be done to create a safer environment for the targeted groups? You have 60 seconds.
I as an Asian, and especially from China, I heard so many hate. And so what I think is needed is that the fear segregate people, the fear of after COVID make people are so afraid of meeting each other. I think open communication. we need to encourage our small business. We need more cafeteria. We need more small business that connect the community. Right now, we are controlled by giant corporations. Government pay kickback 50% of their sales tax to those big companies. We are under control. So people are angry. So all this anger create more hate. We need to have equal treatment for small business to increase people's income. And then they will not hate because they lost their job. They will not hate if they are living well off. So we need more opportunity.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, if I were to be elected, I'd be the only Asian American woman to represent the Bay Area in the state assembly, which is pretty incredible considering 1 in 6 people in the Bay Area is an Asian American woman. And my journey as a woman of color has been marked by various forms of hate, discrimination, harassment, sexual harassment, xenophobia. But I've taken that and I've worked to pass legislation to prevent bullying and harassment. Legislation like SB 1100, authored by Senator Cortese, was a district bill, a direct result of targeted bullying and harassment and anti-API, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric to make sure we didn't have hate speech and violence at our public board meetings. And I remember that bill came down to 1 word, but we got it passed. I've worked on recruiting and retaining folks across diverse ethnic backgrounds for our county government. You know, data shows that there's increase in both hate speech and violence. It's clear we need to attack this at all fronts, from education to workforce to—
Thank you. Thank you. Omar?
Yeah, this issue is especially personal for me. One of the reasons I decided to run was because over these last few months, we have seen such a huge increase in the amount of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia that is happening here at home, and getting calls from people in these communities saying, hey, you're one of the few people that we trust to protect us and represent us, is really what got me to throw my hat into the ring. If I'm elected, I'd be the first Pakistani to ever serve in the state legislature and only the second Muslim in the history of the assembly to ever serve in it. I think we need to do a lot of work to protect our Jewish, Muslim, Asian, Black, and every other community that's here in California and in the Bay Area. And a lot of that means top-down leadership that's willing to protect those communities, that's willing to bring people together and not divide them, to bring resources in to help all of our marginalized residents who are feeling scared right now.
Thank you. Patrick?
Thank you. I've worked on hate crime bills with Assemblymember Evan Lowe. That's why I have the sole endorsement from our district attorney, Jeff Rosen, who created the first in our county's hate crimes task force to actually go after people who are spreading hate, misinformation against especially our communities. You know, when COVID hit, I worked with Assemblymember Lowe to speak out, and we organized the very first Stop API Hate rally in the county. So many others started, but this is the role that assembly members need to have. Yes, we need to work on policy, but we need the power to convene our leaders to show the rest of the community who are just trying to work and raise their families that we have their back, that yes, we're working on policy, but they need to hear from us and speak out against it and make sure that they know that resources are available and that we're going to go after people who spread hate in our communities. And we're going to do it through our law enforcement.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna, oh, good, we have Sophie back. Excellent. Bob?
The answer to so-called hate crimes is to be consistent and objective in enforcing laws in which you are prohibited from harming another person. Bigotry is a flaw of logic and is never correct. So if you are going to enforce those laws, that should be it. What is going on inside the criminal's head should not matter. It's just as wrong if whatever his motivation happens to be, if it's illogical racism, it's just as wrong as he was doing it for his own gain. When you add this layer of mind control and start saying your crime is worse because this person was a certain group, that's going to be counterproductive. When you start muddying the waters with that, saying what you're thinking makes it worse, you're committing actually another act of bigotry. And so, no, hate crimes, no, be against crimes, and that plus a stronger economy will help solve the hate. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bob, this next question starts with you and you have 60 seconds. Should parents be able to direct schools to remove books from their library?
There are many.
I'm sorry, if yes, why? And if no, why not? Thank you.
I actually do not have a yes or no answer for that question. May I still talk?
Oh, certainly.
Okay. It's never been clearer that we should have the government completely out of the education system. You have a curriculum, and it should be a free market choice whether parents want their kids to have the funny books and have the interesting people read to them, or if the parents want to have a more narrow upbringing and leave the other story time things for later grades. So that way, you should leave the money for that education in the hands of the parents. And then we can have a free market and have a free choice in curriculum. And we can decide those issues in the market, not by having people scream at each other in PTA meetings and city hall meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sophie?
I think the right of education belongs to the parents. It's their choice what kind of books they want their kids to read. So, and also the decision for their kids should be made by the parents.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. So I don't support banning books and was supportive of recent state legislation to end those bans. You know, this can set a very dangerous precedent. We need to give students the room to read material that may even challenge them, that challenges their current belief. They need to expand their worldview. And so I certainly don't support banning books. I think it could create a culture of intolerance. You know, we just had a question about hate crimes earlier. And I think that when we give students access to the world around them, they develop empathy and they can even develop a sense of belonging for themselves. I've seen, as a mentor to hundreds of students in this district, I've seen when you open a student's worldview, you can see them grow, you can see them progress and develop into respectful and tolerant adults. So that's where I stand on the issue.
Thank you very much. Omar?
I'm also against book bans. I think banning books will not help anybody. I think it goes against our First Amendment principles even. And I think what's so vital here to understand is that educational institutions, libraries, and anything else is one of the few safe havens that our students have to really go and explore these ideas, explore themselves, and learn more about the world. And I think trying to close that off doesn't help the students, it doesn't help families, and it doesn't help our society. And that's why even at the city level, I fought so hard to protect that right within our libraries here in Sunnyvale and to protect that access, because sometimes if you're too afraid at home to get access to these things, this is the only place you can do that safely. And I think that's so important.
Thank you. Bob, you want to use the rebuttal?
Yes, please. We keep talking about book bans here, and we're not talking about banning books. I'm against banning any books as far as adults are concerned. Going to the library or the bookstore, they can get any book they want. We're talking about books for the students within the education system. And so to call it a book ban is a misnomer. We're talking about deciding on a curriculum for children. And being in favor of a free market does not make me in favor of a book ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick?
Completely against banning books. I think that, again, we need to go further than that. And your next assembly member needs to convene these conversations with our local school boards and work with allies across the district, with our school trustees, to ensure that this line of thinking does not just stop and end at the state level, but we are actually supporting our schools and not getting the wrong candidates elected to the school boards. We have Moms for Liberty coming in, and one of their main platforms is to ban books and decide and have people who are frankly not qualified to decide the curriculum for our kids. And so, you know, we need to do more than just work in Sacramento. We need to be good allies and working with our school districts to make sure that those types of ideas are not infiltrated on our school district levels as well. And that's what I'm going to do locally.
Thank you. Patrick, this next question starts with you and it's for 60 seconds. PG&E customers have experienced dramatic rate increases and pay high rates. Business and residential customers experience significant delays for new hookups and frequent power outages. What changes, if any, would you recommend in the oversight of PG&E?
Well, I referenced it earlier, but the city of Santa Clara has a ton of good bill ideas that we could be implementing throughout the state of California. Their rates are on average 40 to 50% less than PG&E's. And so we need to be taking a look at that. My boss, Assemblymember Evan Lowe, worked on PG&E Bill of Rights, where we have demanded that certain expectations be given to our ratepayers if their power is being shut off through whatever reason. And for any given time, we need to be able to give hotel vouchers for folks who, especially in our Cupertino foothills and other areas in our region, do not have access to electricity for a long period of time. And we need to get clear accountability and even taking away the CPUC authority in a lot of these measures. CPUC oversees PG&E. Why is it that only the governor can appoint that? We need to be changing that. The legislature is a co-equal branch of government. We should be able to, and we're held accountable every 2 years by you. We should be able to have a say in who's on the CPUC as well.
Thank you very much, Bob.
PG&E is a government-supported monopoly, and it's an excellent example of why we should not have such things. Now, there is some progress being made. There are some utilities, such as some in San Jose, that are giving a little competition to PG&E. But the main thing is to just not have a government-supported monopoly, regardless of where you get your CPUC members. And to start taking that away, start allowing competition in every way you can, then we can stop having this bully entity giving us our electrical system and our electric bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie?
I think there should be market competition for the supplier of the power. And second, I think the leadership of PG&E, they live on cloud. So they spend billions of dollars to hire people to look at pictures, but there's no down to earth to visit each power pole and everything. I drove on the road. I saw those power line just leaning down. Nobody take action. But then when the power out, they said, "Oh, we cannot do anything. You just do not have power," because they are monopoly. So I think a privatized competition, and also they should have people cut trees. You cannot have just one wind, just the whole community lost power because of that tree fall.
Thank you. Tara?
So right now, residents are frustrated. Working in the Senate office, I see in the district office, the biggest concern is PG&E. We have rising utility costs that have placed a burden on all of us. Since the pandemic, PG&E has raised their rates every year. They haven't updated their infrastructure. They've been held liable for damages caused by wildfires. But on top of that, they are funding state assembly candidates in the millions, and they are not paying the money they owe to the people that have lost their homes in these devastating wildfires, or to the state of California. They need to be spending their money wiser to pay for infrastructure. We need increased transparency in utility pricing. It's essential for residents to know and understand the factors contributing to their rate increases, and I will work to be that champion. Again, I've held our largest polluter accountable. I will explore options around low-income based assistance programs, and I will make sure we're enforcing responsible business practices. We need fair pricing, efficiency improvements, and sustainable infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Omar?
I think we need, for your next state legislator, somebody who's also willing to hold PG&E and other groups like that accountable. Already, I have so many of my residents here who over the last few weeks during storms have lost power. It is a frustration that everyone is feeling. And PG&E has already shown, or not just shown, but has been proven to have been liable for wildfires, for so many environmental issues, and for literal deaths. And so I think what we need out of our next state legislator is somebody who's willing to put in more accountability, to fight for more transparency, and to ensure that the rates that our residents are paying actually make sense and represent the value of what it is that they're receiving, and that they're getting the highest quality product as a result of it. And all of that comes from having people in the legislature who are willing to do that work. And that's what I intend to do if I'm elected.
Thank you. Omar, this next question starts with you, and it's for 60 seconds. California has experienced a migration of businesses out of the state. What will you do to reverse that trend?
I think one thing that we take for granted a little bit here in California and in Silicon Valley is our status as a tech capital of the world. I think we just think, oh, well, we're Silicon Valley, everyone's going to come here. It's such a thriving place. But what we're seeing is that companies are leaving because of the policies that we have, because we haven't been over time innovating in the policies that we're introducing. But on top of that, the workforce that we have isn't happy here. More and more young people like me who, were born here and went off to college, don't want to come back. Or people that are getting jobs prefer to be in New York City or other places across the country. And the reason why is because the quality of life here at home isn't as high as it used to be. And people are assuming that if they come here, they can never buy a home, that the infrastructure and the transportation options that are available just don't meet what they want out of their life. And so I think what we need to do is not just work with our companies to have a thriving economy, but also to improve the quality of life here at home such that the workforce wants to come back here and wants to stay here, and so that people who are born and raised here are also able to stay here.
Thank you. Patrick?
Such an important question, Tracy. I mean, the disparity of jobs moving out of the state of California is the reason why our state budget has a major deficit right now. It is the reason why we have had a $100 billion surplus just 2 years ago. And now we have, depending on who you talk to, the governor of the Department of Finance, a $30 to $67 billion deficit. We definitely need to be doing more in the state legislature to address this. We're a co-equal branch of government. We need to be standing up for creating way more efficiencies to keep jobs here. Every month, I'm getting a new jobs report of more jobs being laid off, specifically in the tech sector. We need to be doing more on housing affordability, like we talked about, workforce issues, and with the new normal, people are working from home. They're able to do that. Tech companies are getting wise to do that. Our educational institutions, you can be Zooming from home. We've got to do more in that space as well.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, it's very entertaining to hear the people who are promising to do more taxing and spending tell how they're going to solve the problem of businesses leaving California. The problem is economic. The taxing and spending, it's less profitable to do business in California than it is in somewhere else. What happens? The business leaves. Very simple. That one, plus when they're not taxing and spending, they're also passing more regulations, more restrictions on housing and building, minimum wage laws, rent control. It's less and less profitable to try and earn an honest living in California. So the businesses are leaving, the businesses are laying people off every day, and the workers are leaving. And the problem is economic. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sophie?
This is actually a question I wanted to ask our politicians. So we have a very expensive government that keep adding new and more and more laws to rule over people's life. And we have income tax and also sales tax. We paid to this, but we didn't expect that from under the table, billions of dollars statewide were paid out from our sales tax to giant corporations. And this in return killed the small business. And the housing was driven by the billionaires, millionaires, so expensive. No income people cannot afford. And the poor education, parents have no right to teach their kids. Our international kids are learning life skill, but our kids have to learn sexual things. That's not acceptable. And people just feel it's too expensive living here. It's not livable. I feel the same way. So, but I'm here to support people.
Thank you. Thank you. Tara?
Thank you. Well, I want to restore the Silicon Valley I grew up in. And, we need to renew our commitment to progress. And it starts with common sense ideas that innovated our valley to begin with and made us become an engine for the state of California. That means funding education so the next generation can get into these jobs of the future. It means working with local governments to speed up the production of affordable housing. It means making our neighborhoods safer. And it means prioritizing investments in education and infrastructure, because those investments are key drivers for long-term economic growth. We do have an exodus of families and businesses, and we need to revitalize Silicon Valley and the state of California by making it more friendly for business and small business. This can include targeted tax incentives, streamlining regulations, supporting small business development centers like we've been doing here in Santa Clara County, and investing in our infrastructure. We can foster innovation, we can make our neighborhoods more affordable, and we can restore Silicon Valley as a global tech hub.
Thank you. Tara, you're going to start us off on the next question, which is for 60 seconds. Your district is very diverse demographically and economically. How will you effectively represent all your constituents?
Thank you so much. Well, you said it, we have great divides here in Silicon Valley. I think that we can be a model for diversity in thought and diversity in leadership, a model for the state and the nation. I think it starts with bringing someone and electing someone who will fight for underrepresented communities. I think when it comes to bridging our longstanding opportunity gaps and generational cycles of poverty, it starts with representation and fighting for a seat at the table. One of the reasons I'm running for this position is I think women are capable of fighting for women and all women, and they deserve a seat at the table. Only one woman, we only have one woman in our Santa Clara County delegation. And as I mentioned before, we have no Asian American women. And so I think those are some of the things I want to do. About half this district is Asian American. And I think when you're representing the whole district, you need to reach out to everyone in the community and bring their voices to the state capitol.
Thank you very much. Omar?
I think it really is about bringing people together and ensuring that who we're electing is somebody that's willing to fight against these prejudices that divide us here at home. Like I talked about, it's not just about one community over another community. It's about bringing people together. It's about fighting for everyone. And that's something that I have so much experience with. Even on this campaign, I've already received numerous messages from people who are saying that they never want to see a Muslim get elected, who are saying that they think all Muslims are terrorists or are anti-American. And so even my own candidacy is a way of fighting against those kinds of divisions, and bringing people together is what I've already been doing on my time in Sunnyvale on council. It's why I helped create our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I secured funding to hire a new manager of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it's not just about saying the right things, it's about taking the actions to correct for the historical wrongs, for the systematic and systemic ways that we do all of these things.
Thank you. Patrick?
Thank you, Tracy. Part of representing and wanting to represent this amazing district is making sure that you are accessible. That's why I put my personal cell phone number on my ballot statement. That's why people know how to get a hold of me. That's why I have committed and will continue to commit to monthly town halls like our Congressman Ro Khanna. People have a diversity of thought. This is an incredibly diverse district. They need to be accessible to you. And so that's my commitment there. That's why the Mercury News has endorsed my campaign. That's why Anna Eshoo has endorsed my campaign. That's why Planned Parenthood has given me their sole endorsement. That's why the Asian Pacific American Democratic Club of Silicon Valley has given me their sole endorsement. They know that I have gotten things done for them in this district. I've delivered funding for them in this district. I've fought with them, stood beside them in solidarity on the issues that they hold dear. And I'm going to continue doing that as their next assembly member.
Thank you. Bob?
The best way to address diversity is with the libertarian ideal of live and let live between individuals. The only laws to be enforced should be the laws against aggression and fraud. If the government starts trying to do more than that, it's actually counterproductive. If you look at the economics, when there is government manipulation in the economy, it tends to exacerbate differences between groups and to incite bigotry. The answer is to not have that. If you have a free market economy, that's the best way to reward people for the content of their character. And so efforts to start to say, support this group or support that group may be well-intentioned, but they are actually counterproductive. And so I will go with the free market. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie?
I'm a CPA. I audit the government reporting, and I found that the Bay Area lost our sales tax revenue to cities far, far away. If you shop Amazon, your sales tax paid to Tracy. If you shop on Best Buy, your sales tax supported the Luba. So the state has a law that legalizes the stealing by other cities for our Bay Area sales tax. I am running to change the loophole, to close the loophole that stops the corruption, and our Bay Area consumers have the right to help their own community. So it will be $1 billion. This will help so many communities. And also we have to stop the free robbery, to stop all the car breaking, to all the theft of the packages, and people's car was stolen on a New Year Eve.
Thank you. We're going to start our last question, the one that you were given in advance, and I'm going to read it for everybody. And Sophie, you'll be the first one to respond. What question do you wish we had asked you during this forum, and what is your answer?
I think how do we improve the transparency of how our city's financial statement, how our state agency, all these monopolies. I think I really want the people to know that if we do not have oversight on all these cities, state, we are going to have next Enron, because we have significant financial issues that the reporting was not transparent. When I compare the revenue income of the cities reported compared to how much state paid to each city, some city understated $15 million a year. Some city understated $9 million a year. Add together, the whole California lost $1 billion. It was not reported. All the money disappeared. Where did it go? It was pocketed by richest people in the world.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, I want to thank you, Tracy, to the best moderator in the world. And I think we have some great candidates here. So the question I'll ask myself is, what sets me apart as a candidate? And what sets me apart is I've worked in every level of local government, to pass policy, to pass budget, to secure programs and start up programs for our district. I've worked at the school, city, county, and now state level and launch programs to serve our youth and families, whether it's our foster youth in transition to adulthood, our homeless youth, working with students in climate action, closing the digital divide, protecting our youth from fentanyl overdoses and death, getting folks into shelter, getting them housed. I'm also the only candidate in this race to start a nonprofit, and we're serving students across the district in education and climate. And I've worked very grassroots in the community. I'm proud to be the only Democratic woman running in this race. I think women have the power to create change when they get a seat at the table, and proud to be the first Indian American on my board, first Chief of Staff, County Board of Supervisors, and many firsts. And proud to be a member.
Thank you very much. Omar?
Well, thank you so much for a fantastic evening and a fantastic event tonight. And my appreciation to everyone else who's running in this seat as well. I think the question I wish I had been asked is, out of all the things that I've already done, which am I proudest of? And my answer to that would be being the swing vote that led to the approval of 200 units of emergency interim housing shelters for our homeless population. While I was serving on the VTA board of directors, this came before the VTA. And as San Jose Spotlight reported on, I was the swing vote that led the compromise that brought the different sides together and allowed this project to move forward. There were a lot of people who had concerns around housing the homeless. And I felt that at the end of the day, we have a duty and a responsibility to help our unhoused community. And that's something that I take really seriously. And so I brought people together, I collaborated, and we were able to get that through and approved. And that's the kind of work that I want to bring with me to the legislature to fight for everybody, but to do it in a way that brings everyone together. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick.
Thank you, Tracy. And thank you, everyone. Really appreciated this forum tonight with you all. I think for me, it's how are you going to face the pressure of what this job really entails? You know, everyone, we've talked about how diverse this district is, how many different opinions there are for this job. There's 80 assembly members. There's 80 different ways to do this job. So how are you going to stand up to the pressure? I've worked my entire life defying the odds and facing adversity in my life. My policy issues are not just issues that I've learned in college that I work for and care about. I'm the first in my family to go to college. Both of my parents abused drugs growing up. The fentanyl crisis is real and it's personal for me to try and solve it. The homelessness crisis is real and it's personal for me to try and solve it. Our education gaps are personal for me and it's real for me to solve it. We need to really understand the next assembly member is going to be facing immense pressure from lobbyists and special interests. I'm not going to be afraid to stand up to them because I've been trying to do it my entire life. Thank you.
And Bob.
Oh dear, could I ever have anybody ask me why I continue with this free market economic stuff when it only makes me unpopular? It only brings me pain to do so. And the reason is that I do not want to be specious. I could be more of a mainstream politician and I could have a little program set up where I help 200 homeless people get into houses and it would look good to the press, look good on my resume, even make me feel good. In that program where I helped 200 people, did I make 5,000 other people homeless throughout the state? And that's where the economics comes in, where an isolated success actually causes more damage. And that's where I see that being specious is an act of greed. Those less fortunate do not exist for me, for my status, or for me to build up my resume. And therefore, I am going to go for the economic issue and try to make people better off throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Well, that concludes our questions. And I want to thank all the candidates. It was really, I think, a terrific forum. And thank you all for staying on time and helping us get through so many questions. I really appreciated it. I do want to thank all of our attendees for being here this evening. And as this slide says, please do vote, but preferably on or before March 5th. And if you like this event, you're going to love a lot of our upcoming candidate forums and review of ballot measures. Please visit our website for dates and times and registration for these events. And if you would like more nonpartisan information, please explore these sites. And that's a wrap from our side. And again, thank you for attending and thank you to all the candidates.